One of the biggest stories that's happened here in the Valley in a long time has to do with children, and that's why I think this has really made this story much bigger, is it involves young people and beatdowns on young people. It has led to the death of one person in Preston Lord, and I think I think that is a part of what has got the community so concerned, because we all worry about our kids. And the Mesa police chief spoke out about this on Gatos and Chad, and they were talking about the message. And this is the message the chief of Mesa wants to send to the community.
The message was to the Mesa community about how we approach not just this case, but other cases. It's far beyond just the Gilbert goons. The teen violence and violence in general for our young people extends throughout the whole city. We have violence that's happening every single day. We're a big city. So it's how we approach violent crime in general, our investigations, the way that we use our resources, and it's really Mesa specific. And it just happens that these suspects in the case in Mesa were tied to cases in other jurisdictions.
And this is where interdepartmental cooperation matters, when you're willing to share information for a common goal. There's been a lot of criticism of the Gilbert Police Department, specifically the Gilbert Police Chief, not speaking about this, not all this other stuff that's happened. So I want you to hear, he was asked about this. He was asked about the Gilbert Police Chief specifically, but about Gilbert PD.
Mike Solberg is a solid person, and he's a solid leader. I don't have an opinion on what's going on in other jurisdictions. I know that there's a lot of complexities that come into play. I know that we are partners with our East Valley communities, and we stand with them, and it's very complex. And so I'll let him answer any questions that have to do with the Gilbert Police Department. I really wanted to focus on the Mesa Police Department and kind of what we're doing.
And I don't blame him. I mean, that's the answer you're supposed to give. Now, this is Police Chief Ken Koss from the Mesa Police Department. And he was asked, this Christopher Fantastic now has been arrested in 2 separate cases in 2 separate towns. Now, we know here in the Valley, you can drive from one city to the next and not realize you've crossed over a jurisdiction. And we see how they run together, and the same with the East Valley, which is why they work so well together, from Mesa and Chandler and Gilbert and Queen Creek and Santan Valley and all these other jurisdictions, where they all work together because they are so connected. But this kid has been arrested in 2 different cities for the same kind of a crime. He has not been convicted yet, but he's been arrested. So they asked him, is this Christopher Fantastic a Gilbert goon?
All I know is he's associated with other cases. He chose not to speak with us, and so we did not get an interview with him. Mm-hmm. So for our case specifically, that is not part of the allegations. We just know who he is, what his name is, what his involvement is with our case, and the fact that we can confirm, and obviously it's known that he's associated with the case in Gilbert. So that's what we do know. It's something that we're always looking into, but I can't definitively tell you that.
And the reason why that's important is part of an organized crime thing. If this is a gang of people and the gang mentality, there could be some other ways to enforce some laws. The Queen Creek Police Chief, Randy Bryce, was asked about this, and this is what he said, because this is the death of this young man, Preston Lord, and this is what he said about that case.
Understanding this is our top priority. We have a lot of priorities as a police department. There are so many things that happen on a day-to-day basis, but at the forefront of every day, every weekend, every long night, we are focused on making sure that we get this case to where it needs to be.
And this is the part of our expectation, and I think this is a good thing. It doesn't always feel good, especially to law enforcement, but I do believe it's a good thing, and it's this, that we have a very high expectation of performance from the men and women in law enforcement. And it is about making arrests. It is about keeping us safe. But it also is about information. Big credit goes to the county attorney, Rachel Mitchell, in my opinion. Miss Mitchell has been making statements about this and what her office is going to do when they catch people and how they're going to aggressively and vigorously prosecute these cases. And I think that opened the door. Law enforcement finds themselves, and it's something that's necessary. They find themselves in a precarious place when it comes to speaking to the public about specific cases. If they say the wrong thing or they say it the wrong way, a defense attorney can use it. And the defense attorney's job is to as vigorously defend their clients as possible. Nobody in law enforcement ever wants to say something to the media that will jeopardize an active case, especially when you know you've caught somebody that's guilty of a crime. There's what you know and what you can prove. And the police have to dot the I's and cross the T's to prove it. We're talking about a murder case. This young man, Preston Lord, is dead. His family will forever mourn his loss. The people that love him will forever mourn his loss. The importance of now it becoming a high-profile case of dotting those I's and crossing those T's becomes even more important, because you and I are going to be watching very closely, but the defense is also looking for an opportunity to, whether it's you guys race to judgment because you just had to make an arrest and you implicated the wrong person, or you jumped to judgment way too quickly, you didn't have evidence, you were laser focused on my client from the beginning, you didn't explore other options, you didn't look at other people that they could have possibly done this. There's a lot of different things that come into play. So when you have people in law enforcement that don't speak about something, it isn't necessarily that they're avoiding. But I do like the way they're speaking in general about violence. They're not saying these are Gilbert goons or we know that yet, but we're saying when you commit acts of violence in our cities, we take it seriously, we're going to catch you, and we're going to arrest you, and we're going to make the case against you. I think that's exactly what the people in the East Valley needed to hear. I wish they would have heard it a little sooner, and maybe in hindsight they would say the same thing. But it seems as if they're all on one page in those East Valley cities, and I hope it turns into a conviction, and I hope that the families that they will never get their loved one back will at least get some kind of justice. If that's all you can ask for, let's hope that that's the minimum of what we can do for them.
Thanks for watching The Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch the first season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.